continuation, the continuation of ELE, ELE2. Just to introduce this topic with a couple of slides, and then I will hand over to Jane for the details. So the good news is that European language equality will continue. It's like the James Bond movies. James Bond will return in, and we will return in ELE2. So ELE was supported through the Core Language Equality 2020, and then the Language Equality Call, or the Core Language Equality 2021 was released, and there was a good opportunity to continue the work that we started in ELE. We wrote up a proposal that was accepted, and the project will hopefully start then in July. The grant agreement is being signed hopefully very soon. And it's a 12-month project with an even more limited budget, and due to these budget constraints, we had to take, had to make a couple of hard decisions regarding a number of different aspects. The consortium is the 5 ELE core partners plus FNIL and ELE to represent the language communities, the official national language institutes and the Language Equality Network. And ELE2 will pick up directly where ELE1 will stop. And the focus is here on the continuation of the different work strands related to the strategic research and innovation agenda, and ELE2 will of course continue to use the established brand and logo. The primary goal of ELE2 is the maintenance, refinement, extension and further development of the SRIA for achieving full digital language equality in Europe as originally prepared in ELE. And these strategic recommendations and plans specified in the agenda describe the ELE program as described just now in the previous presentation. This is actually the work package structure of ELE2. It's not unlike the one from ELE1. So we have 5 work packages led by unsurprising partners, I guess. Jane will tackle the details in her part of the presentation. So in terms of the timeline, this is a bit too small. Let's look at this part. That's the ELE2 part that will briefly illustrate where the different things will happen and when they will happen. So you can already see here the keyword in month 2, open call. Yes, there will be FSTP funding in ELE2, and this will be described by Jan Hajic in a couple of minutes. We call these SRIA contribution projects, so FSTP-funded pilot projects that will contribute to the further development and refinement of the strategic agenda. And there are various other parts, of course, in this project. And the main goal is, of course, to get the ELE program off the ground, maybe in 2024. Okay, one more slide. And then I will hand over to the next speaker. This is an excerpt from a slide that Natalia Resende presented earlier today. The 4-point Likert scale that shows how the 20,000 something respondents to the EU citizen survey, what they think about the language technology support. And I thought, there are many similarities. Let's put the other slide next to it. So that's the technological factors that Federico presented earlier today. And now just go compare the top languages. It's very, very similar. There are a couple of outliers here, but I found that very, very striking. It shows a couple of things. So we have, first of all, striking similarity between the survey results, regular European citizens, on the one hand, on the left hand even. On the right-hand side, we have the technological factors as computed through the ELG metadata records, 12,000 of them. And there are quite a few correspondences here, which are really interesting. But there are some differences also, especially when I went through the lists, I saw some differences between the left and the right-hand side regarding Portuguese and Norwegian. And this is something that I put in earlier today, so just a very impromptu slide here. But nevertheless, this is maybe something also that we need to investigate more in ELE2, what the similarities are between what users think and what we think in terms of the ELG database. But it looks like our assumption holds that ELG has a fairly representative set of metadata records, and that we can continue with the assumption and under the assumption that what is in ELG is a pretty representative piece of the European LT landscape. Right, next up, Jane Dunn from Dublin City University will continue with a brief overview of the ELE2 work plan. Next up, then Jan Hajc will talk about our invitation to participate in the process with the open calls. So despite the fact that we couldn't take on board the previous ELE1 consortium that didn't work under the budget constraints, but nevertheless we wanted to open up collaborations, and we wanted to invite the community and the ELE1 partners also to participate in the project, and that's why we set up the FSTP part. And then I have one more slide on data availability, and after that we will continue with the closing session. So, but first up, Jane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Georg. So I am going to present the main tasks. So as Georg gave an overview, the main objectives of the ELE2 program. The first one is to identify and reach out to additional stakeholders. So I suppose what Georg was just saying there as well about the person on the street, there are other people out there as well that we know we haven't actually talked to. There are more people out there, and that's what we're going to do in ELE2. Also, we're going to create an interactive online tool, and we're going to document the commitment that people make. So we know people, there's support there, but what does that mean? What does the support look like? And this particular tool will record it, and it'll show that commitment. We'll also organise an additional feedback loop to extend and revise the SRIA, which we will be publishing at the end of ELE1. We will be liaising with the national and international funding and policymakers. So it's been referenced yesterday by Philippe, today as well, that this is a joint program. It's not going to be solely funded by the EU. It has to have national representation as well. And we need to talk to those people, and we will be doing that with your help, I'm sure, over the next 12 months. Georg also mentioned it, and Jan is going to give more details. We will open the call for the 8 to 12 projects through the FSTP mechanism, where we're hoping that we'll get use cases and best practice examples to motivate, facilitate the buy-in take-up from the funding agencies. And hopefully we could use some of these examples then in the new version of the SRIA that we publish at the end of the ELE2. We'll also be preparing a list of missing language resources and tools. We know what we have at the moment in ELG, what's missing, and we'll be specifically outlining what's missing for each particular language. We will continue to strengthen the engagement and dissemination efforts through the social media, through our very detailed newsletter that you all receive. And then finally, we'll be maintaining the ELE dashboard, which you had seen this morning. Stelios gave us a really good demo. I had discussions with a couple of people about how they will be using it, maybe to talk to their own funding agencies, and how they really liked the comparison between the contextual factors and the technological factors. So we hope that will be really useful as well. Again, Georg showed previously a slide with the 5 work packages that we'll have for this project. Again, very similar to ELE1. The first one will be looking at further consultation. We'll take the first 3 months to work out what our approach is going to be. We will then liaise with the relevant stakeholders and document their feedback and include that in the next version of the SRIA. We will liaise with the national and international funding agencies, as I have previously said, and document the commitment then in this online tool, which I referenced. We have 3 different deliverables. We don't have 67 or 66 deliverables in this particular 12-month program. Work package 2 then, Jan will give more detail on this. It's about the open call. Again, we'll be using the first couple of months to specify what the approach is. Jan will say this, we'll be looking for maybe some suggestions, some feedback from yourselves as to what might go in there. Organising and publicising the call, and then contracting, overseeing and evaluating then the completed pilot programmes. And that will be one deliverable there. Work package 3, which will be looking at the maintenance and the extension of the SRIA, monitoring what could with EHU, which Herman was showing us this morning, continuing to monitor the different policies that are out there and looking and seeing what is out there, specifying a list of, as I said, the language resources and tools. So not just saying, oh, we know low resource, what languages, what tools. Extending and maintaining the ELE dashboard. As I said, people have already said to me how useful that they think they will find it. And then continuing to collect and put that feedback back into the SRIA, which we will publish then at the end of the project. Okay, and we have 4 deliverables there. And then the last 2 work packages, very similar to what we're doing already in ELE 1. Work package 4 will be led by DFKI again, looking at dissemination, communication, so the websites, the social media, liaising with the European Parliament and the European Commission, organising another conference, which hopefully we'll see you all in another 12 months. And publicising then the revised strategic agenda. So it will be taking all the learning that we're going to be, all the work we're going to be doing in ELE 2, and again, filtering it down, summarising it, and issuing a revised version of the SRIA at the end of ELE 2. And they're the 2 deliverables. And then finally, the project management. So this is ourselves here in DCU. Overall project management, so that's coordinating the meetings, hounding people at times with emails, ensuring that everything is running smoothly, deliverables are being submitted on time, and that, you know, we're doing what we said we would do, and that's a project management report. So that's it. My 5 minutes are up. I will hand you over now to Jan. Thank you very much.
So good afternoon again. I will present a small part of the ELE project, but I think one which is important for the overall success of the resulting SRIA, namely that we will need input. As in ELE, we had input from many stakeholders, and even for the update of the strategic agenda, we would need more input and cover whatever possibly is not covered at the SRIA to reflect the 1 year between the collecting the input in ELE 1. Maybe other things happen, and we decided that in this case, and also because how the whole thing was set up in the call, that we will solicit this input through the FSTP mechanism. Now, some of you might be aware of the ELG calls that we published and we organized as well for the ELG project, but this will be quite different. So that's just a word of warning. The topics and even the way that the calls will be handled will be still within the framework of the FSTP, but will be more simple. The project will be smaller, and of course what we expect from the project that will be approved will be different, because in this case will be really focused on the strategic agenda. So that's how the projects will be defined as a contribution projects for the SRIA. The total amount of money that's available for these calls is only 185,000 euros, and we expect to have 8 to 12 projects funded. So you see that the amount per project will be smaller. Also, the call limits the contribution to 25,000 euros. Who was in the ELG, you remember the limit was 200,000. So of course we can't do it. We would have just one of these projects. The projects will also be shorter. ELE is for just 1 year. So in order to organize the calls, to write the calls, to evaluate the proposals, and then to use the results of the proposal for the actual update of the SRIA, the project cannot last longer than those 2 or 3 months. So from this, we actually have sort of a timeline. I mean, this is still preliminary. Please don't take it at face value, but essentially the timeline will be in these 7 points, in the 7 intervals or 7 time points, that during the summer we will work on the preparation of the call. And we also hope, as Georg said and James said, that we will ask you as the ELE partners and some others from the community to come up with ideas what they think might be relevant for the next edition of the SRIA, to give us some ideas what the actual topics for the individual projects in the call should be. And based on the feedback at the end of the summer, we will start working on the actual call for these FSTP projects. This will be prepared within the project, and we will define these 8 to 12 areas in which people will be able to submit projects. Now, I can't tell you now what these areas will be, because they will be really based on your feedback and our analysis, our own analysis, when the SRIA is finally out there. Of course, the book will be out there very soon, so you can look at it and see if you think, okay, something maybe should be added to it, and you can always suggest it. I already got emails, in fact, when we mentioned it this morning, and people are already asking what the topics will be. Then the third step is the actual submissions. We are bound to have a 2-month window, which of course is a little problematic with this very tight schedule. So we expect that the call will be open somewhere between the end of September and middle of November. So there will be the time when you will be writing the proposals, and you will have to subscribe to one of those predefined topics to which the project will be submitted. Now, of course, we can find out eventually that no one has actually submitted a proposal for a particular topic. Then we might accept 2 proposals for a different topic if we see that they are complementary or so. So again, there is nothing is written in stone, but the plan is this. Then after that, we will have to do very fast evaluation. So this will be, of course, much simpler than the ELG. There will be no external reviewers. We will only review it by a board with all members of the consortium represented, and they will decide about the submissions, which one sort of fits better and which one will be funded. Now, after that, we will actually tell the submitters which ones are accepted, if they accept the conditions, and we will work on the contracts. Now, again, as I said, it's a small amount of money, so the process will be simple. There will be a lump sum paid not in 3 installments, but in just 1. But of course, it will be paid only after you submit the results, because it's a very short period. You will have to fund it yourself in the meantime. So think about cash flow. After the project is done, there will be a report. I mean, all of these projects essentially, again, I think all of them, maybe not all of them, but will submit all of them will submit a report. For some of them, this will be the only output of the project. We will look at it. If we feel it was done well, we will pay the agreed sum. So no financial reporting, just we will judge at the evaluation time whether the money sort of corresponds what you want to do. So after the report is in and we look at it, we will pay the money. And of course, the final step is on us as the ELE2 consortium, that we will integrate the the results, the reports that the projects submit into the new version of the agenda and the roadmap. So roughly, this is the timeline. Again, there are no exact dates because, I mean, this will be determined during the summer at the beginning of September. But to have some rough idea, this is the 7 steps that I've just described in just a graphical form. So that's it. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. You can email me or Georg, and we will certainly let you know soon what we would like to get from you during the summer. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Jan, and Jane as well, of course. So the last slide of the session is this one on data availability, which is another topic that we will work on in ELE 2. We have seen yesterday and today, it was mentioned in every single session, the lack of data as a huge problem and challenge, and especially when it comes to data for those languages that have a smaller number of speakers. Relating both to annotated data and unannotated data. So it's about time that we do something about this in a more systematic way, I think, instead of saying every single time, once again, that, yeah, lack of data. So let's do something about this. This is also something that is mentioned in OpenGPTX. Yeah, in OpenGPTX, I mentioned this yesterday. We are trying to build a large language model for the German language, and that was one of the first topics in the first meetings when we discussed, okay, which data do we use? Maybe you know the Pile as one of the huge data sets that was used by ELE AI, for example, but even that is, in terms of German, yeah, so quite lacking. So we need to become creative in the community. We need to knock on doors. We need to start pestering people that maybe, yes, we don't want to republish data sets from book publishers, for example. That's not our business. We want to train models primarily. So copyright, it was also mentioned in one of the last presentations that there are copyright restrictions. I actually don't think so. Yeah, there are. We don't want to take away copyright. We just want to use the data. That doesn't have anything to do with the copyright. So they just need to let us take the data, use the data, and I don't think this is a copyright problem. It's a problem of will, essentially, and we need to convince people that they need to give us their data so that we can use it for the computation of models. So this is something that we want to do in ELE 2 in a concerted way. Together with the whole consortium, we want to knock on various doors. We need to talk to stakeholders. We have very good signs, just to mention one example, from the German National Library. They have a set of all PhD theses written in Germany, all of them. Yeah, they have them at the National Library. And there are promising signs that maybe we can take that data set and use it for language model training. Yeah, but it's too early to say anything specific, but that is one route that we will pursue. Another case is a German publishing house that publishes a very well-known journal, magazine in Germany, and the person who's responsible for innovation topics there, he said, sure, why not? We can give you all our data. Sure, train your models, train away. Yeah, so, and we need more of these cases. Yeah, a coalition of the willing who don't see any problem with us taking the data, training models, and then simply doing something with the data. We don't want to republish their magazine copies. This is not what we do. So ELE 2, together with interested other projects, and OpenGPTX will definitely be one of them. We will do one attempt to make available data that exists, but that is simply not accessible to us right now, that is locked away in treasure chests, and we need to unlock these treasure chests, and let's make more data available covering all our languages. Quite a bunch of data exists, but we simply don't have it, and we need to at least try to get access to the data. If we do this in a concerted way throughout Europe, maybe we can achieve something. Right. We maybe, even though we are approaching the closing session, maybe we can take a couple of minutes for questions, maybe also addressing some of the topics that Jane presented or the open call topics. Are there any immediate questions? No hands are going up in the air, so everything is crystal clear. That's good. There's one question.
It's for Jane, actually, or about the ELE too. I noticed that EFNIL is representing the community, and I wondered if such political questions like the one Sabina brought up of Greenlandic not being able to get access into the larger platforms, is that something that ELE2 will work on and implement in the SRIA?
Yes. Yes, yeah. So one reason why we have EFNIL in there, and Sabine and Tamas and other colleagues who are active in EFNIL, is that we need to work more on the political angle to talk to larger organizations about various topics. Yes. Okay, no more questions? Good. Thanks so much again to the presenters of this session, and then there's no need to hesitate. We can continue with the closing of the conference with just a few more slides as usual. So first of all, I wanted to mention this once again. Yeah, the TDLE workshop, Federico mentioned this also in his presentation today, the Towards Digital Language Equality workshop organized by Herman and his team in Marseille at ELREC on the Monday of ELREC, on the pre-conference workshop day. There will be a keynote, Measuring Cultural Representativeness and Rethinking LT for All by Antonios Anastasopoulos from George Mason University. We have a couple of papers accepted at the workshop, 3 from the ELE consortium plus various other papers, and we are pretty certain that it will be an interesting afternoon. If you happen to be in Marseille on that day, please join, or please consider joining. Another thing that I wanted to mention once more, not just the sheer number of deliverables in the project, we are all aware of that, this insane number of 66 deliverables. I actually counted the pages, yeah, so it's more than 2,000 pages, 2,210 actually, and 6 reports are still pending. This is a huge amount of data, lots and lots of valuable reports and parts, so please consider using the reports in your own research, for your own research. It's a very rich and useful body of work, we think, and I just wanted to pitch that once more. All of them are available online, at least those that need to be online, that are public deliverables. Consider using these. We would be happy about that. Yesterday I showed this slide already. Yeah, so the 2 books, the ELE book, the ELG book, they will be published very soon. The ELG book is almost ready. Let's say progress bar is 98% or so, and will be at 100% very soon. The ELE book is not as mature. It's in production. Maybe we're about 40% ready. So 40% of the chapters, or 45, are essentially ready. And the book will be put together, published in the second half of 22. Both books, again, as open access. The ELE book will have 46 chapters due to the language reports, which will get 1 chapter each. Yeah, that's 34, I think, in total already, and then plus 12 additional chapters on the other parts of ELE. Again, this will also clock in at something like 400, 450 pages, looking at the status quo on language technology, European language equality in 2022. The first part here, the 34 chapters on the language reports, then another part devoted to the other deliverables, reports, findings, outcomes of ELE that look at the current state of play. Then we have one part dedicated to the future situation in 2030, and then finally the last part, 2 chapters on the strategic agenda and roadmap. So we can't wait to put it together and to get it published. One part mentioned already by Jane is, yes, there will be another Meta Forum coming up in 2023, probably in June, also coinciding with the end of ELE2, probably in this room. Yeah, so maybe that's a good way to end that project. So we can continue some ELE activities, and Meta Forum, fortunately, is one of them. So already now put a little placeholder in your diary for June 23, maybe. Concrete date to be confirmed and to be announced. Okay, some final remarks to close the conference. We've seen that there's a lot of traction for our overall topic. Again, it's getting more and more. It could be faster, but there is more and more traction on the international level and the various national levels. Herman mentioned the examples: Spain, Estonia, Iceland, some other countries are doing great work. All countries, all industries, all sectors, everybody is interested in large language models. Just talked in the coffee break to François Yvon. So he's preparing a report for the French government and what's happening in terms of language models throughout Europe. Everybody is interested, and this needs to be coordinated, of course. And there will be more opportunities in Horizon Europe and in Digital Europe for research and for deployment, as Philippe Gillin also presented. One of the key aspects, I think, is collaboration and especially coordination between the EU, between the EC, and the different countries and regions. There needs to be a good setup to get this done, so that countries can concentrate on getting national funding programs, like in Spain and so on, that support the development of technologies, including models for their own languages, like is being done in OpenGPTX, for example, for German. Yeah, we have this big new German project to develop a language model for German, also trying to push the state of the art, of course. But this is also going to be part of the project is deployment and testing, and we have use case partners in various domains. This is always important for the ministry to have, and also important for our research results to test them and to validate them. Of course, scientists want to compete with their colleagues on a global level. Many are simply working on English, yeah, so that we can compete in our shared tasks, and I think this needs to change. Not for every single, for every single person, of course, but we need some more incentives to work on local languages. This needs to happen, ideally through dedicated national funding programs in the different countries and regions, so that then coordination can happen on the international level, and ELG, ELE2, and other related initiatives will help to get this done. Right, ELG, ELE2, the language data space, and maybe other initiatives will also help establish the bridge between and the strategic plan for the EU and the participating countries to develop the next steps. And we're looking forward to ELE2. We are looking forward to closing off ELE1 after these many deliverables and all the work that went into this project. And with this, I would like to close the conference. Thanks very much to all of you for coming to Brussels, for participating again and again in this conference series. We are very, very happy about this. Thanks to all the presenters, to all the participants of the panel discussions, to the attendants who joined us online through Zoom, and of course special thanks to the ELG and ELE consortia, and especially big round of applause to Katrin Maheinecke, who I think it's difficult to tell with the light, sitting behind in the back. So Katrin, Annika, Jane, and others, they pulled all of this off. They did a great job. Thanks very much, and also to the technicians in the back for orchestrating everything.